Hi, I'm Penny, and I have Saturn in my 4th house. And this is my story. So, I grew up with both of my parents up until I was 7 years old. They were having a lot of problems at that point in their life, and they were divorced. They were separated and then divorced when I was 7. So I mainly lived with my mother. She became like both parents. She became like a mom and a dad to me, and I guess in a way I totally respected her. She works really hard. She owns a flower shop, and that's her source of income. I didn't have any siblings, so we had each other. I visited my dad sometimes, I saw him from time to time, of course, but it was mainly just me and my mom. So she had some rules, about what I was allowed to do and not allowed to do, but I think it was mainly just because she didn't want to lose me, because then she'd have no one else left, and I also didn't want to lose her because I wouldn't have anyone else left. But it was hard because, she had this curfew, 7 p.m. curfew for me every day. When I was in middle school and when I was in high school, it was still a 7 p.m. curfew, so you can imagine that was pretty hard. And on top of that, during the weekends, I would be required to help her work in the shop, to do the administrative task, even after school as well, actually. So in a way, I think I learned about, hard work and things like that from her, but it was also hard on my childhood, I guess. Also, she never really allowed me to have a boyfriend either. She was quite demanding that I don't get a boyfriend, before I was 18. I don't quite know what, I couldn't quite remember the details, but I remember that I had a lot of stress, I suppose, back in middle school and high school, but I couldn't really talk to my mom about it. I had friends, so from time to time I would be able to talk to them, but still the lack of ability to connect with my mother, that was really hard. When I cry for anything, I remember that I, sometimes felt emotional and I just wanted to cry, but all she did was give me a silent treatment. And I would just have to shut myself in my room and deal with it on my own. And every other weekend I would meet up with my dad, but I don't really think he was really prepared anything to meet me, in a sense that he seemed moody every time I met him, or he was just either hungover from the night before, and it's not like my mom cared about that. Like, that was the only time I really had with my father, and he wasn't even prepared to see me, and my mom didn't even care to do anything about it. I think she was just happy that at least once every 2 weeks I was out of her vicinity. I was actually really good at school. I remember that I pretty much got straight A's. If not, then there was like all straight A's and then 1 B+ or something in all of my classes. So I had that to channel my energy into while I was not retreating away in my room at home. I had some pretty good friends, but of course, because my curfew was 7 p.m. every day, it was kind of hard to do anything after school. And on some weekends I had to go visit my dad, so I tried to make the most of my time I could with my friends. But I remember there was this one incident back in 7th grade when I had this best friend. We would, hang out every day at lunch, and some weekends I would, hang out at her house. One day she just kind of came to me and said that she no longer wanted to be my friend, She wanted to break off our friendship because she thought that I was bossy. I don't know if bossy is the right word, but she said that I was smothering her, basically, because she said that she had this boyfriend and I was trying to give her too much advice, boy advice, and she just didn't like it, and so she thought that it would be better if she had some space from me. I remember when I was in 10th grade, I was seeing this guy. He was really nice. He was he was quite a popular guy, you know, in school. But I have to admit that maybe I did make some mistakes in that relationship, in a sense that I spent all the time that I could with him when I couldn't. When I had the opportunity to be away from my mom, I would just spend it with him. Even with all his family gatherings, all the ones that I could go to, I would spend it with him. And sometimes when he had soccer night with the guys, if I could get away from my mom, I would be there with him. So he broke it off with me after a while. I think it was because, now I realize it, I didn't realize it back then, but now I realize that maybe I was just too involved. I dated another guy when I was in 11th grade, and then another one when I was in 12th grade. Neither of them lasted very long. I had a lot of crushes and things like that, but somehow none of them really became a relationship. And I didn't know why that was back then. But now I know. And besides from these relationships, I was also very active in school. I tried to pursue as much social activity as I could so that on some weekends I would have the excuse to tell my mom that I couldn't be there to help her with the flower shop because I had these school activities, and she would excuse me to go there. So that was good because I could get away from her for a little bit, but then sometimes she didn't allow me to go. But then sometimes, even when I went, you know, when I came back and told her about what I was doing, it was just, she didn't seem to appreciate the clubs and everything that I joined in school. You know, I was part of the Amnesty Club and part of the Rotary Club, and I was doing a lot of stuff, but she was always kind of like, well, that's irresponsible of you, Penny. That's irresponsible. You know, I felt like I was trying to take responsibility for my own life and be independent, but yet that was irresponsible. When I was 23, I started my first job. I was a part of the marketing team in this advertising company. I remember that I think at the back of my mind I was thinking that I wanted to save as much money as possible so that I could finally move out and get my own place and not have to be with my mom anymore. But I was there with her for until I was 28. I don't know, I was trying to save up, and I did save a lot of money, but something still made me stay. You know, something still held me back, and I think that internally I just wanted to make sure that she was going to be okay without me for sure before I actually moved out. When I was 28, on my 28th birthday, I remember I had this huge blow up with her. You know, I was talking to her about what was going on at work one evening, and it just, like, everything that she had repressed came out, and she was criticizing me a lot for my choices. She was saying that I'm not smart enough, that I was stupid, that I could only be part of this marketing team in this company, this advertising company, that I wasn't capable. it was almost like I had to be independent in my life, but only under her terms. So I remember thinking to myself after that huge blow up that that was it. That was that. I was finally getting my own apartment. Whatever I had saved, that was going to be what I could, afford. So I got myself a tiny little apartment, just a little in the city. And for some reason, the moment I had my own place at 28, I found this inner peace that I had never felt before. And because I was so at peace when I came home, I was doing really well at my job. And by 29, I was promoted into the marketing manager of the company. Later, when I was in my late 29-ish, although I felt that I was doing very well, I was very successful, there was something that I felt was missing, because although I had my own apartment, I absolutely loved it. It was a little bit messy. Like, I never felt like I wanted to clean it up, and there were just things lying around everywhere. And at that moment I realized that the fact that my actual home was so chaotic and messy was because my inner home was still chaotic and messy. And that's because I hadn't talked to both of my parents in over a year since I moved out. No contact at all. One of my friends suggested that, she's really saw me going through such a massive crisis. She suggested that I saw a therapist. And I was like, okay, I might as well just try it once in my life and see how it goes. So I saw this female therapist. And it was very healing. She suggested that I looked into my family history. To find out, what the people of my parents' past were like. So I decided that I would visit my grandmother, whom I hadn't seen since I was 25. I don't visit her that often. I thought that I would make it my mission now to develop some kind of relationship with my grandmother, to figure out what is going on inside of me, deep inside, that feels so empty, but at the same time so chaotic, like something would just burst and leak out at any moment. So I had to control it. But when I controlled whatever was deep inside of me, it made me feel empty. So, and I decided to spend one summer with her. And we had a lot of talk during that summer. She told me that while she was growing up, her mother also divorced her father, and she was also living with her own mom, so my great-grandmother, and she was helping her great-grandmother to work and make a living at that time. And there were a lot of rules and regulations within the home, and she had to stay there for a very long time. But eventually, around 28 years old, she moved out, got her own place, and then felt some kind of inner peace. Doesn't that kind of sound like what I went through? I thought to myself. And somehow that realization was enlightening, because I knew that I wasn't, these things were just not happening to me for no reason. They were a part of who I am. They are a part of who I am. My ancestors are a part of me, and we are in this together. And that kind of, when I was going through this, I was still seeing my therapist, and I remember that I would cry to her every session, and I don't usually cry, and I hadn't cried in like a really long time since when I was like really young. And I remember during those sessions I would just, everything would just come out. And she called it inner child work. That's what she called it. It was very healing, you know. I wasn't alone. This void that I had inside of me was filled with love. Love that was always there, you know. It was always there since my great-grandmother. Everything was done out of love, and I found this space inside of me, which I now call home. It's an inner home that I have inside. A solid foundation for everything that's happened in my life. And it's a pretty good foundation, you know, because everything is connected in my past. At that point in my life, you know, before my 30th birthday, I also kind of got into Wicca a little bit. You know, I was studying paganism a lot because they, you know, the Wiccans really worshipped the goddess energy. So I thought I wanted to try to get more in touch with my feminine energy. And I think that was really something that was very, it was like this little space that I had for myself. It was my cozy little space inside of me, and I felt that the goddess were inside of me, all of them. The different faces of the different goddess, they were all me, and that was who I am, and it was a part of me. I even, you know, did some prayers during the cycles of the moon, you know, the new moon and the full moon. I worked with the energy of the moon, and I got in touch with my own internal flow. So, you know, it made me kind of embrace the fluctuating emotions that was going on inside of me, and made me know that I didn't have to hold it back. I could flow with it. I also started cooking for myself a lot, because that was very nourishing. That was something that my mom never did because we never had time for it. But it was something that I made it a thing, and I'm actually pretty talented with cooking, I now realize. And the other thing that I really like to do now as a habit is I've been hosting dinner parties for my friends. Every, you know, 2 to 3 months I would host a dinner party, just a gathering, a potluck for them to come over, and I wanted to share my home with them, and I wanted to feel that my friends were also my family, and so that's been good. So, you know, after going through all of this, I think I now realize what my karmic cycle looks like. You know, I think it all started because of my insecurity about my own insecurity. You know, because my feelings were never validated, but instead they were even shunned by my mother. This, you know, feeling stable inside at the house, at my home when I was younger was so much of a challenge, and so there's an insecurity about everything that was supposed to be stable and secure in my life. So I kind of overcompensated for this by attaching to other things when I was younger, like romance, you know, boys, food, you know, career, my own career, you know, my friends, all of them. I thought they could bring me the nourishment that I needed. But what ended up happening is that, well, I kind of smothered the people that I really cared about, you know, to mask my own neediness. But also, I freeze and I pull back and I defend my deeper feelings to mask my own neediness as well. Because like I said, that if I were to let it all out, then I would feel like something just leaked out of my own internal dam. So I really had to protect that, and I felt that if I really let my inner self out in my intimate relationships, that the fear of being invalidated or shunned as a child, that fear would become a reality. So I couldn't let anything out. And because of that, you know, I was feeling deep, deep, deep loneliness because of it. And this loneliness just causes more insecurity, and then the cycle just keeps going. So I think I've learned a lot from, you know, these experiences that happened in my life. I've learned that to escape this, karmic cycle, that I'd have to really be in touch with the origin of my family, my ancestors, what really went on with them. I really had to know that. It was like discovering the root of my attachment issues and finding a place inside myself where I could be compassionate for everyone in my family. And if I could find that acceptance and compassion for my ancestors and my mother and my grandmother, and by the way, I've started talking to my mother again. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, we got in touch again, after those therapy sessions. But yeah, to embrace, to accept and have compassion for those people made me accept and have compassion for myself. Accept and have compassion for the deeper root of my pain. It's basically an acknowledgement of my own feelings. It made me realize that the root of my pain is who I am, because the root of it comes from my own origin, my family lineage. So that is, I think, in a way, healing. And I've also learned that, I have to turn inwards and nourish myself first before I can get nourishment from anyone else out there, because I would just be blocking it anyways. And the nourishment that I give myself brings me strength. And that strength that I get from nourishing myself is strength. That is real strength. That is what I have discovered. So now there is a home that I've built within myself that I can take with me everywhere I go.